Well, I was just saying to Jonathan Givony that I've actually got my work done early this year, so I don't have to bother him in the crazy week before the draft. I can be a much more considerate host and ask him to join us here, which is always a privilege. Great to have you on, John.
Appreciate you, man. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. I'm getting excited about this draft. The last draft was, maybe not quite as scintillating as our usual fare. So I'm really excited to get into this with you. I guess where I wanted to start though is, I don't really have a sense of the depth of this draft. I don't follow college that closely. That's something that you are immersed in. But some of the things that I've heard have indicated like, well, the draft's a little thinner this year. Some of these guys are going back for NIL money, or now even like schools being able to pay directly to players, and even some European guys are coming over to college. So what I wanted to ask you is just in general, how is this new landscape, which we've been in now for a couple of years, where college players are actually making money, which you all agree is a good thing, how is that affecting the draft? How do you expect it to affect the draft in the next few years?
I don't think it had as big of an impact as some people made it out to be. Like in the first round, I think there was really one guy that decided not to stay in the draft. That was Yaxel Lendeberg, who ended up at Michigan. And so, there were, I think where it really hurt was in the 30s and the 40s and definitely in the 50s. I think we pulled out something like 22 players off our top 100. And a lot of that really was in that 35, to 80 range. And so it's a lot fewer options for teams to choose from. And I think that the draft does kind of take a hit, I would say around 35, 40, depending on, what guys you like. And so it will kind of become a little bit slim pickings, but we say that every year. And then, I think where it's different from last year, for example, is a guy like Jalen Wells, coming out of Washington State. He had another year of eligibility. He actually entered the portal, and Duke and some other people were interested, but the numbers weren't as insanely high a year ago as they are now. Like a guy like Jalen Wells now is probably like a 2.5, $3 million player on the
Mm.
market. And so he actually originally didn't even get invited to the NBA Combine. He wasn't one of the 75 guys invited, which is crazy because now, he finished third in Rookie of the Year voting, at an
Yeah, yeah.
awesome year for the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think that he probably would have pulled out of the draft then. I mean, what happened was some guys pulled out of he was invited to the G League Elite Camp. Some guys pulled out of the NBA Combine. They needed extra bodies. They threw him into the Combine. He didn't even play all that well, to be honest with you. If you look at his stats, I think he shot like 6 of 19 with, way more turnovers than assists or whatever. So, it's a remarkable story, actually. And I just think that if he came a year later, I think Jalen Wells goes back to school, has an awesome year at Duke, and is, probably gets drafted 15 to 25, probably not that much higher
Yeah.
because he's an older player. But I would argue that that would have been a better outcome for his career in terms of like the how much money he's actually going to make, because now he's on like what, he's on a 4-year deal. You know, all the control is on the team side. He's making the minimum, a million or whatever he's making, and after 4 years he's a restricted free agent, and he'll get paid then. I mean, obviously it's 3 years to go, but I think being like the 19th pick in the draft is a way better outcome in terms of like how much money you end up making. But we'll see. I mean, he's going to be fine either way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that was going to kind of be my next question of like, are these guys who are going back making the right decision? It seems like you think that most of them are.
It's hard to judge because like Yaxel Lendeberg, like that was a surprising decision for him to pull out. I felt pretty strongly that he was going to end up being a first round pick. There's not a lot of bigs in this draft. He has a 7'4" wingspan. He's really skilled. He can handle pass and shoot. He's got some versatility defensively. He's got a good feel for the game. He's 22 years old. The risk is really on his side, pulling out of the draft, going to Michigan. But talking to him, talking to people in his camp, they'll say like he didn't feel like he was emotionally ready for the NBA. He was such a late bloomer, and he is just now starting to scratch the surface on understanding what it means in terms of a work ethic perspective and just like how dialed in he needs to be to his nutrition and his routine and all. This guy was like a gamer. He was playing video games for 18 hours a day 3 years ago, and then he ends up at some junior college in Arizona. So like if he puts it in that perspective, like who am I going to say like, no, Yaxel, you made a mistake. You should already be in the draft right now.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. And, yeah, I mean, 2.5 when, especially if you're going to be on a two-way, maybe you get converted halfway through the year or something, and then there is that team control. Yeah, I mean, I think there's the idea of getting out there faster. Like to me, once you're like 22 or 23, it's kind of like, and you're going to really be an impact player in college. That kind of makes more sense to go back because probably you're not going to be like a super high level guy in the NBA. Whereas if you're younger, it's like, yeah, maybe you get into an NBA system and you've got all this time to make a bunch of money. I don't know. I guess it really can kind of cut both ways, but it sounds like you're not that concerned about the talent level. I mean, these guys will all end up in the NBA at some point anyway, right?
Right. It creates a little bit of a bottleneck that is going to get resolved because in a year or two, because all these players eventually they're going to run out of eligibility and then they're going to end up in the draft and it'll go back to being normal. And I think that every draft is so talented now. Like there's so many players now from so many places on earth. And these guys are so highly trained and they're so specialized that like you're going to see guys like, I mean, we're seeing every year second round picks come into the league and make an impact either in their first year, second year, third year. And so I just think that trend is going to continue, more and more every year now.
Well, and also I don't mind that sort of these lower level guys are going to be in college for longer. I would rather that a roster
Sure.
spot go on someone who can make an impact as opposed to someone who's just going to be, wallowing on the bench for 3 years before you even see the guy or in the G League or whatever.
It's better.
Um,
It's better for the
yeah.
players. It's better for the colleges. It's better for the NBA teams, and it's better for the agents. They make a ton of money, on the NIL commission. So I think everybody, and it's better for the fans because they get to see guys for longer in college. So I don't really see anybody that this hurts.
Yeah, not necessarily at the same school but in college consistently, but at least
Sure. Well,
you
the
get to know
school
all the
needs to
guys.
go get their own players,
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
where these guys need to turn into better talent evaluators and recruiters and all that and figure out how to draw in talent from like lower levels than them.
All right, let's talk about the draft now. This draft, we'll begin with Cooper Flagg. I know you've followed him very, very closely for years and years and years, and he was originally supposed to be in the 26th draft, reclassified before his final season of high school. Two questions I want to ask you. And number one is kind of where he falls on, we've been talking about him as a number one pick for 3 years now, no matter what draft he's going to be in. So question number one would be just where you see him in that pantheon of some of the top picks over the last 20 years or so as it stands right now.
Yeah, I think he's up there. There's been some pretty bad ones, like in the last 20 years. So like you can right
Yeah.
away, he's going to be ahead of like the Andrea Bargnanis and the Greg Odens and the Anthony Bennett's. So it's like Markel Fultz, and so there's been a lot of bad ones. And so, but I think that you know I don't think he's the level of a prospect of a Victor Wembanyama, but I liked him more at this stage than Paolo Banchero or a Cade Cunningham. I was super high on Zion Williamson. I still have high hopes, like for him panning out, but obviously it's not looking great for him right now. But yeah, I mean, if I mean Anthony Davis, that's a reasonable outcome for him. I would think.
Yeah, I kind of thought of him as that level as well. Like Zion, AD, not quite Wembanyama, obviously not quite LeBron, probably not quite KD. Obviously, like Odin didn't turn out well, but he was one of the best high school players ever. Everyone thought he was going to be unbelievable at
Yes.
that time. Take us through his evolution over the last 2 or 3 years, because for me, when I actually broke down the film of him at Duke relative to what I'd seen at least a few times at the lower levels and just my understanding of what he was supposed to be earlier in his career, I was very surprised at his evolution.
What do you mean? Like, what surprised you about his evolution?
I just thought his skill level was really, really impressive. I mean, he
Yeah.
was sort of known as like this energy guy, this winner, better on defense than on offense. And like, could he really create offense? He's going to be kind of more of a secondary scorer. Even, up until his last year of high school, it was like, yeah, he can't even really shoot. That was kind of the thought on him. And then when
I
I saw
mean,
him,
you
yeah,
remember
yeah,
our
go ahead.
little powwow at I don't know what that bar was in Portland at the Hoop Summit. Maybe you can tell that story about the can he shoot? Like Mike will be okay with you telling the story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. An unnamed NBA executive was uh, probably half trolling, but was telling the world
I
team
mean,
head coach
four
that his
beers in, to
strategy
his
was.
credit, yeah, didn't think he could shoot. Like there was
Yeah,
that
he said
sentiment.
your strategy should be just let Cooper Flagg shoot every time, and you and I were like, "Are you crazy? He's shooting great
Yeah,
in the
no,
practices." Yeah,
yeah, because
but yeah, but
he's gotten a lot better. I mean, he's always been. I've seen him before, but like my first like really high level exposure to him was in the summer of 2022. So 3 years ago, he was 15 years old. It was the under 17 FIBA World Cup. It was in Marbella and I guess Malaga, I guess, and he was exceptional. Like I mean, it was, but his impact was primarily like a lot of guys at that age was in transition. So I'm just looking at his stats now. So he made three threes in 7 games, but I mean, and he only shot 41% for two actually, like in that tournament. But like
yeah,
the blocks, I mean, 20 blocks in 7 games, 17 steals. It was the assists, it was the dunks, it was the athleticism. It was just like it was the energy. I mean, he was playing up 2 years also, like which is so rare when you see a 15-year-old who's just like going at people and just making that kind of impact on defense. And like usually when you talk about like a number one type prospect, you don't talk about the defense. It's very rarely the
right.
first thing that comes up. That's why the Anthony Davis comp, like Anthony Davis was always like so much further ahead defensively than offensively early on in his career. So yeah, but like his ball handling has improved dramatically. His shooting has improved dramatically. He's always had a great feel for the game. So his passing has always been there, but it wasn't necessarily like playing pick and roll like he was this year. Like all
Yeah,
these mid post ISOs and the skip passes and like grabbing rebounds and going and finding guys on the move and just always making the right play. I mean, like his brain is so advanced for a guy who is that athletic and plays that hard and like you said has a legitimate skill level now. I mean like from when he turned 18 December 21 to the end of the season he was shooting like 43-44%. I mean the ACC it was a joke just how good he was. And so and we saw it in the NCAA tournament too. We saw it in the Final Four. So yeah, I mean when you're the best player in college basketball and you're 18 years old, that says really good things about your future.
yeah. I mean, yeah, again, like the fact, even seeing him, playing in high school, most guys in high school, like, okay, you're the man for your high school team. Then maybe in college, you fit into a little bit more of a role. Obviously, his high school team was ridiculously stacked, but he wasn't really like running that much pick and roll in high school, right? Like he was playing as more of sort of like a forward. So yeah, that seeing that I was just blown away. He could play both ends of the pick and roll. He's coming off screens for jumpers, like triple threat game, ISO in the post. Like it was, I was just very impressed at the breadth of ways that he has to attack. Because I was sort of thinking like, hey, he doesn't have the greatest first step. Like he's not really like blowing by guys, getting separation. The way you would think most of these guys who've gone number one, you're thinking about him like that. And I was just like, no, like his skill level is just like good enough to make it work, even though he's not absolutely explosive as far as like blowing by guys, getting to the basket or jumping over guys or anything. Even though he's a good athlete, but not one of the best we've seen.
Do you see him being like a primary shot creator from day one? I mean, obviously the Mavs need that, so that's part of why this is such a good fit for him. Is that like they don't have any guards, like so? I mean, who's going to dribble the ball for them? It probably needs to be Cooper Flagg. How do you see that going for him early on in his career as a rookie at 18 years old?
Yeah, that seems maybe a little bit. Again, I don't want to put anything past him because his skill level growth has been meteoric. But I think guys, and I think also the way that he like can kind of play slow and has confidence in his dribble in tight areas is something that'll be great at some point. But also, like if he has to play against guys who are smaller than him and quicker than him, who can like get into him, I don't know if that's going to go that well for him right
Right.
away, but I'll be fascinated to see it. I don't put it past him, but I hadn't really thought that much about his role on the Mavs yet. But that is a fascinating component if he's going to be kind of a point forward type. I don't know that I want him bringing the ball up, but I think you could try to run some stuff through him.
The problem is that they're going to have probably Anthony Davis at the 4 and Lively Gafford at the
Yeah, I
5.
know.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe PJ Washington at the 3. He's playing the 2. There's not going to be a lot
That's-
of spacing on the
yeah.
floor, I would imagine, next year.
Well, you've whetted my appetite with that discussion because I want to get to the Rutgers guys now. And my favorite Givony is shitting on the terrible college environment of good college players, Givony. So Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, the Rutgers team was not very good. They didn't have a lot around them. Let's start with Harper first. I know you have the number two. What do you see as his especially if he were to go to San Antonio, what he's going to look like early on?
Yeah, I mean, so just watching I've a lot of NBA playoffs. I mean, like from November through March, I'm so locked into college basketball, international basketball, high school. I mean, I watch NBA stuff. I go to NBA games, but I don't get to sit down and study it as much as during the playoffs. I mean, obviously the product is so great in the playoffs. It's enjoyable to watch every night, sitting down, watching, and just like, man, Dylan Harper, he could play in a playoff game just because he's so
Yeah,
big, he's so strong, he's such a great ball handler. He's so skilled with his footwork, and he's gonna with NBA spacing, he's gonna draw a lot of fouls. He's gonna finish around the rim, and he's gonna find guys too. And so I just feel like his game really fits. I mean, if you can have that jumbo 6'6" ball handler who can get to spots on the floor and play through contact. I mean, it's a physical game. The NBA game is becoming like he's really well. He's a tough guy, so he's equipped to play in that type of environment. And yeah, and then you can guard a few different positions. Got a 6'10" wingspan, and so I mean, the San Antonio fit will be interesting just because, three guys who pretty much fancy themselves point guards, none of them very good shooters, and you actually want the ball in none of their hands. You want the ball in Victor's hands. And so I mean, that's something they have to work out, but like, I think teams make mistakes when they draft for need and, especially that high in the draft. So to me, Dylan Harper is pretty clearly the number 2 prospect in the draft. And so you take him and you figure it out. But like, part of me wonders, like, if they knew they were going to get the number 2 pick, would they have done the De'Aaron Fox trade? Like, I mean,
yeah.
actually, the roster would look a lot cleaner, I would think, with him and Castle. And but who knows? I mean, Fox's contract, all that. I mean, they'll be able to figure it out, and they have all their assets. They're going to be just fine. But it'll take them some time.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like a seamless fit from day one, I think.
No, I would agree with you on that. Yeah, and particularly Castle and his shooting will be a difficult fit as well with those other two guys. So that's what I want to ask you about a little bit more with Harper. I love all the aspects that you talked about. He would be a clear number 2 on my board as well. I talked about him for an hour when Danny and I broke him down, and I think he's you know a big guard who can get to the basket. I actually don't have much fear about him like actually being a winner and playing winning basketball, despite what happened at Rutgers this year. Having seen him in like the Hoop Summit environment and like I playing a smaller role, like I think he can play more winning basketball maybe than he played this year. So that's not a concern for me. The shooting is a major concern for me though. Like my personal opinion is that he's going to need some surgery on that jump shot to really fulfill his potential. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't think it's broken. He made 53s in 29 games. He shot 75% from the line. He's made threes everywhere I've seen him play, but is he a great shooter? No. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on it. But everything I know about him is that he's a worker. And I think this is why NBA, skill development coaches get paid the big bucks, is to help him
Yeah.
figure out, like, why is it coming out so flat? And, like that's something that they're going to have to
Yeah.
work on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he could also like raise his release point above his chin. Maybe that would be useful too. Like I like that. That's really because I'm actually shocked given how it looks, how often it goes in.
Yep.
Um, but it's just, yeah, it's super flat, and because if part of the appeal of him is that he has this size, and I think he could be someone who kind of uses his body, gets to spots, can score in the mid range. But then if you're going to shoot it right from your chin, you're giving up a lot of that size advantage. So that's what I think. Like I don't think like I think he has the just natural skill level and touch to where he can do it. But I would be surprised if he's shooting well 3, 4 years from now, and it looks the way that it looks. I guess would be. But I have confidence that he can get it to an acceptable level.
Sure. No, I agree with you.
And then how about his defense? Any thoughts on that? Do you think he's going to be just like, big and strong and doesn't get attacked, or can he really be like a quality option on that end?
I think he's gonna have to improve there. Like we saw it in spurts. Like I don't know if you watched the last game of the season against USC. It went to overtime. He played 46 minutes. Like that was the hardest that I've seen him play. I mean, he was fighting over screens. He was digging down off the ball. He was rebounding. I mean, he was getting in passing lanes. He was blocking shots. He was doing everything, but he was very inconsistent. I think early on in the season, he was very, very bad off the
Yeah.
ball, especially. And I think he was inconsistent there, throughout the year. But I don't, I think he's got feel. He has tools. He's got the body. He's got the competitiveness. He's a playmaker. He rebounds. So I think he's going to be okay, but it's not the best part of his game right now.
All right, let's get to number 3. Is would Ace Bailey be your number 3 on your board?
Yes, he's number 3. Yes, for me.
Yeah, so just take us through why he's still there for you despite what was a very inconsistent season.
I just think 6'9", 18-year-old guys who can score like that, the athleticism, the intensity, 7'1" wingspan, just the way that he can. I mean, there are not many players who have dropped 38, 39-point games in a Big 12, in a Big 10 game. And so I just think that like when you're scoring at that level at 18 years old, and I think it's such a valued position too. He can play 3, you can play 4, you can even play some jumbo lineups with him at the 2. I just think that his floor is going to end up being pretty high, and I think he's got a very, very high ceiling at the same time. And I've watched him play in other settings too. Especially with his high school, McEachern. And I've seen him do more. Like he played point guard in high school. You would never guess that based on the way he played at Rutgers. Yeah. And he looked okay, he's not a great ball handler. He's not a great passer, but he looked like a more competent, shot creator and facilitator in that setting. Obviously it's high school, so he should. And for me, what was encouraging was seeing the strides that he made as the year moved on. I think with his feel for the game, which is, I went to some practices like September, October. He started off at a very, very low level in terms of his knowledge of the game and just terminology and little things like that. And so, he's younger than some of the guys who were McDonald's All-Americans this year. So, like, he could very well be going into his freshman year in high school. And so I think when you're comparing him to like a VJ Edgecombe, a Kon Knueppel, a Derek Queen, you have to realize that like he's significantly younger than those guys. He's a full year younger than VJ Edgecombe. He's a full year younger than Kon Knueppel. He's like a year and a half younger than Derek Queen. So I've watched him enough to be bullish about his upside and what he brings to the table and the level of competitor that he is and his talent. But I understand, all the skepticism and all the red flags that people have, and so it's going to be fascinating to see how it turns out.
Yeah, he has so many ways in which I think he could succeed. And as you said, it's just such a valuable position. And when you look at some other guys who've been drafted in the top 5 as wings, like he's probably on the upper end of that curve as far as his skill level right now. And you mentioned still that he's younger, like as a shooter, like he's one of the best shooters we've seen at that. Maybe he's behind like a Brandon Miller, but also Brandon Miller was like 20 when he was drafted
Right.
too. And I think Ace has more athleticism. Like he's got that 8'11" standing reach, which I think is massive. But he's just, like, he's definitely a weird player. He's not like a plug and play guy. He's got this amazing shooting ability. He shot 69% from the line in college. And he's got this really high standing reach, but he's very inattentive off the ball. Like, and he'll take 2 slides moving his feet, and then he just kind of slows down and lets the guy go by him. And so they're like, he'll block these shots sometimes. Other times he just doesn't even get off the ground on defense. He is really athletic, but his hands are small, so he can struggle to finish sometimes. So there are a lot of kind of weird elements of him, but I think just ultimately for what he could be and the skill level that he's shown so far, like he's got to be the pick there. And also because there isn't anyone else that I love in that
He
spot
really
either.
scares NBA people, and I've had more conversations about him than probably any other player in this draft with NBA
Yeah.
executives. And so he scares people because they don't want to draft him, and then he scares them because if they're worried that if they don't draft him, that he's going to end up being a star, making them look really stupid. So I think he's definitely he's a very very polarizing guy.
All right, so I think this will be our first disagreement. VJ Edgecombe is your number 4. Tell us about why you have him there.
Yeah, I just think that the intersection. First of all, did you watch the Bahamas games from last summer?
No, that I needed. That was actually negligent on my part. I should have looked at that more closely because I know he was good in that setting.
He went to high school in Long Island, and I live in Harlem, so in Manhattan. So I got a big dose of VJ Edgecombe throughout his high school career. Even when he was like a junior in high school, when he was like barely even like a top 100 recruit, is when I first saw him, and maybe even as a sophomore. I don't remember, but so he came on late as a high school player, and there was a level of skepticism that I had about him just because I was like, he has no wiggle and his shot is kind of questionable. And, what position is he? He doesn't have a great frame or whatever. And then
Yeah,
that FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament really opened my eyes because he was playing, with like 3 pretty good NBA players, like DeAndre Ayton, Eric Gordon, Buddy Hield, and he was playing against some very good NBA players. I mean, it was Spain with Santi Aldama and Lorenzo Brown, Sergio Yul. It was Poland with Jeremy Sohan. There was a BS one too, like from Angola or whatever. But anyway, he was very impressive. They're playing him at point guard, and he just looks so under control, and like nobody can stay in front of him the entire tournament. He's getting anywhere he wanted on the floor. He was passing. He was making shots at a decent level. He was finishing. I mean, he played super hard on defense, and I was like, damn, this guy could actually compete for like the number 1 pick potentially.
yeah,
He was that impressive in that setting playing against men, and then he gets to Baylor and it's him and Jeremy Roach is playing point guard, just dribbling the air out of the ball. Rob Wright, another freshman, he's like 6-foot combo scorer, and it was like VJ is just like in the corner, and he started off his season horrible. Like he had
yeah.
several like alarming games. I think they played against Gonzaga. They got smacked by 40. He did nothing. then they played Arkansas. He was just okay. It took him a while to get going. But I just think that like the athleticism, I think he has real feel. That's something that like not everybody agrees about, but like I think he actually knows how to play. And I think that he will develop into a guy that can play, on the ball some and make simple reads. And like he doesn't need to do a ton because like he's so explosive with his first step that like he's going to get the spots on the floor. He's so good in transition. But the playmaking on defense is amazing. Now, I mean, I'm sure I know what you saw, which is like the lack of handle. He kind of played at half speed sometimes on defense. Late in the year, I mean, his shooting fell off a cliff. He was going through a spurt where like 6 weeks where he was like shooting at a very high level, and then he really kind of fell off. I think like the last like month of the season or something like that. So I don't know what synergy clips you were watching or whatever, but like he definitely was not at his best late in the year, and they were a little bit of a dysfunctional team. They had to, bench Jeremy Roach, and they put the ball in Rob Wright's hands, and they'd kind of do like my turn, your turn offense sometimes, and like,
Yeah.
and it was inconsistent. Like did he have a great season? No, but I still think there's a lot of upside there.
Yeah, to me, the issue is I'm not like a huge believer in the shooting, just based on his form of being. I think it could be adequate as like a spot up guy. I don't love it off the dribble. Another guy who I think need to make some big changes, which guys have made. And you mentioned that he's not like an unbelievable ball handler. So like not really a point. Would you agree? It's unlikely he ends up being a point guard.
I mean, point guard is. I mean, like everybody plays a bunch of guards. People often play
Yeah.
three. So, like, I think that he will be a guy. I mean, he has no problem bringing the ball up the court, and like, I think he's more of a point guard than like Keontae George. Is Keontae George a point guard?
Yeah, I would say he probably is. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
But
he's. I
but
think he's more
that
naturally unselfish than Keontae
yeah.
George. I think he has a better feel for the game than Keontae George. They played at the same school.
Yeah.
That's why. I mean, the comparison.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, another one that came to mind for me as a possible comparison was Jaden Ivey in recent vintage of kind of like combo guard can handle,
Yeah.
because I mean, the main appeal of him in theory is he's going to be able to attack off the dribble, right? Like that's his main skill. That's offensively.
Yes, but he did. I mean, he did make
Yeah,
53s this year. I mean, he had. I mean,
yeah,
he was shooting it very, very well in the Big 12. Let me see. What did he shoot in the Big
yeah,
12? Which is like, defense is loading up on you. 37%. Like that's not bad. 81% from the line for a guy who's like not known for his shooting. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
yeah. I guess I'm kind of thinking like if he's not a one and I don't see him shooting it at a level where I'm like, all right, I love him starting at the two. And so if he's not either of those two things, then I'm sort of like, all right, what like is there that much upside if you don't really fit into that box with starting one or starting two? Now the point was made to me after I recorded that Victor Oladipo would be another possible comp that maybe that sort of outcome, like, yeah, he's not really a point guard, but someone who's just so fast getting to the basket and can defend and make plays and shoots it well enough. That do you think that's like a reasonable comp for him? Obviously Oladipo got hurt, but during the as like an
Oladipo was a
if you're gonna
was a
believe in
very
his
good NBA
upside, that's what
player.
you see.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's a very reasonable. I mean, if that's
yeah,
his median outcome, I think that's fine. I mean, VJ Edgecombe is
yeah,
also he's 6'5", so it's like I don't know
yeah,
that he has to be a point guard. I mean, you could play him like let's say Philly drafts him like him and Maxi, like with McCain coming off the bench, and sometimes McCain
yeah,
is at the two, VJ is at the one. I mean, I think like you can interchange there, and I think that's fine.
yeah. I think that's and where do you see him defensively? Do you see him as like being an upper echelon defensive guard?
I think he can get there. Yeah, I don't think he is that right now, but I think that he has all the
Yeah,
tools, and he's got great instincts, and yeah, I think he kind of saved himself at times this year, which kind of bothered me a little bit, and that like I felt like he was when he was like this unranked guy who nobody really knew about. Like he was known for his motor. He was just flying around, just like making plays, and he had no game offensively at all. And it was really just his defense back then. And now
yeah,
that he's like, more of an offensive guy, I think he lost a little bit of the thread of like that defensive intensity, which I hope he can bring back, because that's one of his best attributes for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, what you're describing would not be a terrible fit in Charlotte with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, because both those guys have really good positional shooting for their size. So you can fit
Right.
in
Yeah.
someone who maybe isn't at that level, but also would, he'd be really good in transition and hopefully could be your defensive stopper at the two. So no,
Yeah.
I'm you convinced me a little bit, and I definitely want to watch those Bahamas game, because I was lower on him than a lot of the other guys as of right now, but I'll definitely give it one more look before I do my final board.
People have been like wowed by him, like in interviews, like
Yeah,
he's like the guy that like people meet and they're like, I trust this guy is going to reach his full potential because it's just like the level of like seriousness and like how intelligent he is and just like I mean, his background is very, very difficult. Like his father is in jail and like he has not had an easy life at all. And but he's like a very, very impressive human being. And I think that's one of the things that like has really like stuck with people in the pre-draft process, the more they've gotten to know him. And I think these are like job interviews, and that's just very important. And I think that might end up being what gets him picked, potentially third, as high as third.
so my guy who's probably going to be my number 4 is Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma, and I have a weakness for point guards. Maybe even a little one from the Chicago area. It's even more. But guys with like a great skill level, ball handling. That's where I've made some of my mistakes in the past. So I do acknowledge that. Um, so my question to you on him is, because he's just so, he reclassified. He's got this, sort of savant like ball handling skill, but just incredibly raw in all these other areas. Although I think he's shown flashes in basically every area. What is the well, tell me first your evaluation on him, and then I also am interested to know how he's been interviewing, because that to me is huge, because he has a very casual approach right now, but he also is very inexperienced.
Yeah, I like Jeremiah Fears. He grew on me. I mean, he was a big surprise. Like he
Yeah,
reclassified late. People didn't exactly know what the expectations were. He picked like a great fit for him at Oklahoma. I think the coaching staff there did a phenomenal job with him, putting the ball in his hands, but like also like holding him accountable when he would make mistakes, like actually coaching him. And I mean, the schedule that they played was brutal. And I mean, just like the usage that he was able to soak up, like, I mean, just like you said, the talent with the ball, the ability to play pick and roll. I think his passing improved a lot as the year moved on. His finishing is inconsistent, but I think he showed some flashes there too. I mean, it showed some with shot making ability. There's some things to work on also. I mean, it's just like, a guy like that who can get anywhere he wants on the floor and has, decent positional size. I mean, that's enticing at 18 years old. I mean, my concern with him would be that like you draft him and you're locking yourself into being bad, like for at least a year or two, like I don't care how talented he is. Like these guys are never like positives in the NBA early on in
no,
their
no,
career.
he's gonna be awful in the first couple of years, absolutely terrible.
Yeah. And I think that's scary for some people, but it may be enticing to some people too, because they're like, hey, the 2026 draft looks awesome. Like let's take, if we're early enough in our rebuild, like you're a Brooklyn or something like that, that could be great. You get this big time talent, put the ball in his hands, and then you make a run at AJ DeBonza or Darren Peterson.
So, I mean, do you have the two things I want to ask you about then? Like, do you have any understanding of how he's been interviewing, and then also how's he been shooting it in the pre-draft process?
I mean, he's a naturally quiet guy, so I don't think that the interview process comes like as natural for him as it would like a VJ Edgecombe or a Khaman Maluach, who are these like larger than life personalities who like just captivate a room. But I think he's gotten a lot better with that. Like I spoke with him when he was younger. I spoke with him when he entered the draft. I went to watch him work out. I spent some time with him too. He's an 18-year-old kid who is like growing up, and like I think he's getting
Yeah.
more comfortable in his own body. And like I think that it's gonna take some time. Like I mean, I think about myself when I was 18. Like I did it. It takes you a while to
Yeah,
discover like your
the less I do
personality.
that for myself, the better.
Right, exactly right.
I
Yeah.
don't want
So,
to
but
think about
I
myself
think
as
I think he's. Everybody raves about him as a person and all that. You know, I think there's zero like concerns about him. But like, yeah, he's 18. He's got some growing up to do for
yeah.
sure.
And then the shooting.
The shooting needs a lot of work. Yeah, it's not there, but like 85% from the free throw line, I think that's encouraging. You know, I mean, the game winner against Michigan, I don't know if you saw that, but you
Yeah.
know, so he has some confidence in his shot making prowess, and I don't think he's as bad as his 28% indicates, but I think just like he's knowing what a good shot is and a bad shot is going to take him some time, but I don't think that like his I think his form is fine. So I think he could be okay as a shooter. I don't think he's ever going to be like in the 3 point contest, but I think he'll be okay.
Yeah. That was kind of my thinking as well. And it's just like I think he is definitely a very high upside prospect, particularly with the ball. I mean, to me, he's like in the 10 years that I've been doing this, probably like a top 3 or 4 ball handler
Yeah.
that I've evaluated. So I was, but I was pretty impressed by that. All right, who's next for you?
Kon Knueppel. Have you gotten to him yet?
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you a Tre guy or are you a Knippel guy? Or you could be both, obviously, but I guess you have to pick
I
one
mean,
if you're
I
drafting.
understand the virtues of both guys, but I would probably lean Khan if I were like an NBA GM drafting from. I mean, it depends what you have and what you need, but
Yeah,
I mean, I think Khan can fit in any offense, and I think for if like you're a playoff, I'm like I would love to see him on the Spurs, man. You know, like I think like just the way that he plays pick and roll, the way he can pass, like the level of toughness that he brings, his feel for the game, and then the ability to shoot off screens. I mean, I just think Khan is going to be awesome. You know, like I went to a practice in October and I came away saying this guy is going to be Klay Thompson. You know, and so
yeah.
and I really feel that way. I mean, I think that's what he's going to end up being, that kind of player down the road.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, when Danny and I, we went through our all of our white shooters who are a little bit thicker. Your McDermott's, your Kisperts, and like he's better than that guy. He's better than that guy. And but what I said at the end, I was like, I actually think this guy has all-star potential. Like the pick and roll stuff, the passing, the way that he can use his body, that he's comfortable getting into the lane and making plays. Like, yeah, he's pretty unathletic. He can't really jump off of 1 or 2 feet. But I just like they're just especially he's good in the analytics translation. There's just something in my spidey sense where I'm like, this guy, like, there's even like a little bit of Luca to him, actually. I would even say of just his ability to sort of like get to spots, use his body. And so that's I don't think he's gonna be a top 5 player in the league, but like there are scenarios in which I could see him that there's just gonna be more than what it would appear to be the sum of his parts to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think he's got a great feel for the game and a great skill level, and I think the current NBA game is just tailor made for Kon Knueppel.
Yeah, especially because he's big and he's probably going to be guarded a lot by, all right, we're going to put our wing on a point guard. We'll put our point guard on Knippel. Like, oh no, Knippel's actually can like kind of bully that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
He's going to survive on defense.
I think he's fine. Yeah, I think he's a better
Yeah.
defender than a lot of these guys. He's just really
Yeah.
smart. He's always in the right spots. He's tough. He plays hard. Is he going to be like a stopper? No, but I think he's going to be like at least average, if not like even slightly above average. Let's say 5, 7 years from now.
And it's very easy again to make it this binary athletic versus not athletic thing. Like, yeah, he can't jump, but I think he moves laterally pretty well. And also, like, he's not going to get run over like a lot of these shooter types as well because he has that bigger frame at 220.
Isn't off ball defense in the NBA just as important as on ball
Yeah,
defense? And then like just playing hard. Is it like that seems like
yeah,
you watch an NBA regular season game, like I mean, it's so important. Like if you have if you're a guy that consistently plays hard in every possession, that's such an advantage.
yeah. Like especially again, if you compare it with his shooting ability to other people who have had that profile for this player type, I think he's going to be fine to maybe even like better than fine. Do you feel that way about Tre Johnson?
About his defense,
Yeah,
I do not know.
yeah,
I do not, but he's got size and incredible scorer, an incredible shot maker, and
Yeah.
going to watch that guy in a workout is, it's quite a sight because like dude never misses, so. Um, and I do think that like just spending an entire day with him in Santa Barbara and just seeing like how focused and driven this guy is on being great, I think like okay, if he understands that like this is going to be a part of the equation, if he wants to be the all-star level player that he wants to become, then like he's going to have to get better on defense. I think he'll study it, and I think he does. Listen, 6'10" wingspan, 6'6". I mean, like, he's got the tools. Like, wasn't good on that end this year, but he wouldn't be the first guy who played no D in college that ended up being okay in the NBA.
Yeah, I get like the lack of rebounding was something that also really bothered me because like he can jump off at 2 feet. Like the fact that he wouldn't like stick his nose in there and get a defense for the rebound rate was just awful. Like that's so like ultimately, I'd certainly see the scenario for him because and Danny made it as well. Like that he if you can just shoot off the dribble from three like that is very difficult to stop. Now he doesn't get by anyone, which is kind of a problem for me. I would be like very, very high on him if I felt like he was going to really be a big plus attacking the basket. But I also just the history of guys who do absolutely nothing else in the box score other than make tough shots. That is worrisome to me. Like I think he's a good pick. He's interesting. I think he has some upside, but that's kind of why I'm more of a Knueppel guy than a Tre Johnson guy.
Yeah, I don't think like I thought he was Cam Thomas like early on in the season, but then like I spent
Yeah,
time around Cam Thomas, and I saw him a lot in high school and in college, and like he did not give a fuck. And like I think Tre Johnson, I think gets it a little bit more, and I think
yeah,
there's more buttons there that you can push with him as a coach to get him to understand like this is why we need you to play defense. And so I mean, obviously, a lot's gonna come down to where does he end up, and like who's surrounding him and all that. But like I think that like there's some avenues there where he could be okay, like, and not just like a
yeah.
total loser like he often came off watching him, in the Big 12.
No, because again, for this type of player, he has way better physical tools than your Cam Thomas, your Jordan Poole, your like, I actually think his frame, he's weak now, but I think his frame will get bigger. And that's actually something too I think is important for his offense is can he use his size to kind of get to spots and shoot over people,
Right.
DeMar DeRozan style? Because
Yeah.
I think he can make those shots. He's got the high release, it's quick. But if he because he's not going to blow by guys, but could he bully some smaller guys? Because he wasn't really able to do that. He was too weak to kind of like in a lot of his mid, like he shot better off the dribble threes than off the dribble twos because he couldn't create space for himself in that
Right.
way. But I think like his frame to me is good. Like I think he'll be able to
Yeah,
do that in time.
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
Khaman Maluach, I'm familiar with. I've not watched tape on him yet. Saw him at the Hoop Summit, and obviously I watched all these Duke games, so I've seen a few games of his. It seems like you're pretty high on him as that next kind of rim running center who can block shots and maybe defend on the perimeter a little bit.
Maybe make a three one day. Why not?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. His
I just,
shot did not look broken at the Hoop Summit. I think that's that is
he's
kind of
gotten a
interesting.
lot better. I mean, like so I mean I've been watching Kaman since like summer of 2021 was the first time that the NBA Academy kind of put him in front of people. And he was an awful player then. He was so thin, he could barely run. I was just like, they were like, they told me like this is going to be the best prospect to ever come out of the NBA Academy, and I'm like, wow, like man, this guy has no chance. I actually was more of like a Ulrich Chomsky guy at the time because like his body was so much better, he was so much more athletic. But Kaman has gotten I mean, he works so freaking hard. And I mean, like his mobility has taken such a jump. His body has improved incredibly. His footwork. I went to see Duke practice several times this year, but the last time I think was in January when they were here to play Illinois at the Garden. I went the day before, and like just watching him go through like a 45-minute like big man practice, like it was amazing. Like left hand, right hand, footwork, like things that like he couldn't dream of doing like a year ago. And this guy's 18 years old. He's only been playing basketball for 5 years or something like that. And so like, I mean, I just think like with the tools that he has, 7'2", 7'7" wingspan, as long as he can stay healthy, I think the sky's the limit for him.
So, two questions. First off, do you believe that he could be a Brook Lopez-esque stretch five at some point? Like, could he get to that level as a shooter, you think?
Yes, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a way better shooter than Brook Lopez at that age or whatever. Like, I mean, you go watch him practice and like it looks really good coming out of his hand. It's soft, like he makes like 10, 11, 12 in a row. So it's like, and he's been working on it for a while. And it's not like he just started shooting threes yesterday. So it's like, I think that like obviously there's gonna need to be some buy-in from the coaching staff, but like like you saw like Jonas Valanciunas stepping into open threes in the NBA now. It's like I don't see any reason why Khaman Maluach can't, be like a guy who makes threes from the corner, above the break, top of the key. Is he going to be like a pick and pop guy? Probably not, but like he doesn't really need to be.
Yeah, I guess to me, he kind of does need to be like I when I go through my center rankings, I kind of have this Mendoza line of if you're taking 4 per 36, that's kind of the line at which you're going to get guarded. Like Valanciunas, yeah, he's a trail. He'll do this ridiculous slow pump fake and he'll take it, and it's like, all right, Yusuf Nurkic, leave him wide open, that kind of thing. But if it's like, no, once you can get to being a pick and pop threat, or at least someone who has a pretty quick release, like where you're going out there, it's not just a party trick for you. It's like part of really what your appeal is, what you're being
But
signed to
I
do.
want him
So
rolling. Like,
is
why
he at
would you
that
want him
level?
popping? Why not have him just roll every time? Because like he's so long. You can just throw the ball up. He's gonna suck the defense in. He's gonna create open threes for people just every game just by rolling hard to the rim.
Yeah.
Like I'd almost like I was happy for like to see Khalil Ware in Miami, like not turning into this pick and pop guy, actually being like a roller. Like I think like guys early in their career, that's like it's way better for them than to like just hang around and like just settle. Like go get on the offensive glass. Like that's what Khaman Maluach is
Yeah.
good
No,
at.
I agree. I'm saying like, 5, 6 years from now when,
Sure.
he's getting a second or a third contract, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, you just see like how powerful
It's
five
hard to
out
say.
spacing
On it's
is.
hard. I wouldn't
Yeah.
put it past him honestly.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And then is he someone that you think can be like a top five rim protector in the NBA? Because he didn't block that many shots at Duke, right?
No, I don't think. I think he's a little bit, slow off the ground, and I think his processing speed is like just okay. And I mean, he didn't block a lot of shots, partially because like people weren't even going in there at times. Like he's such a
Yeah.
deterrent, and like he changes so many. Like I would watch a game and be like, man, come on, Malos changed like 11 shots, and like you would look at
Yeah.
the box score, he had like one block. Like so. But I don't think he's that kind of athlete, like to be a top
Yeah.
five rim protector in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, he is absolutely massive though. And so that's yeah, I would be, especially having seen him in person at the Hoop Summit last year, like I thought, in those practices, he, in the game he didn't play as much, but in those practices, he was really causing problems for guys in a way that, you don't see a lot at that age. So I'm a believer that I need to watch him more closely, but based on what
He's
I've
got
seen
some
so far, I
versatility
think
too. Like he can actually
yeah,
like switch, he can hedge,
yeah.
he can show. They used him in a lot of different ways. So he's not just like a drop guy who just like, waiting to rotate to protect the rim. He can actually like cover ground and do a couple different things defensively.
So this is we've now reached the point at which I haven't really watched guys that much. Is there anyone else you're like really fired up to talk about?
I can talk about anybody, man. Like how far down the top 100 do you want to go?
Well, okay, so give me a couple that you think are going to end up going too low.
I think the guy that people are sleeping on a little bit is Jakucionis because of the
Yeah,
way, like, I don't know that people were watching like in November and December as much as they were in like March. And he hit a wall at some point. But I just think when you're a 6'6" point guard who can make every pass out of pick and roll and you can shoot off the dribble and you've got a strong frame and you're, he's got some toughness around the rim. He finished very well around the basket. He gets to the free throw line. I just think like you have a very high floor in today's NBA, and I think people like they saw. I mean, he did pretty much fall off a cliff at some point. Like I said, the last third of the season, he really struggled. But I just think the highs were so high for him. Like, I mean, that Arkansas game in November, the Wisconsin game, the first game of this Big Ten season, the Northwestern game, Tennessee. So I think that I think he's going to be, and he's got such big nuts. Like even when he's having a horrific game, like against Purdue, he'll make the game-winning three at the end. So I believe in a guy like that. Does he have all-star potential? Probably not, but I just think he's going to be a really, really good player in the NBA because it's just so valuable to have a 6'6" guy that can play 1, 2, and 3 and just like has that kind of feel, has that kind of toughness. I just think that and he's just turned 19, like 2 weeks ago. So I think he's going to end up being really good.
Can he guard anybody, or are we looking at like a Vasilije Micic type of guy?
He's not a great defender. He's not a great athlete, but like he's smart and he's tough and he's got some strength and he's got some length. So he's not like, going to be like I think he's going to be average at best, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, but not just like, one of the worst like
No, I
defensive
don't think so.
players.
No, he's too competitive for that.
Nice. Okay. I like that. Anybody in the pre-draft process that's really stood out as far as just they're interviewing well, they're shooting better than expected, like guys who have risen as a result of the pre-draft process relative to what we saw from them before that?
I mean, the guy that's risen the most is probably Noa Essengue, just because of the way that he's
Yeah.
playing here. Like their biggest games of his season, they're in the semifinals right now of the German League playoffs, and like he's just producing like at a very, very high level. At 18 years old, he's 3 days older than Cooper Flagg, which is insane. And just the way he's getting to the free throw line, just the havoc that he's wreaking defensively. All the, he can pass a little bit, he can steals and blocks and rebounds and like just does a little bit of everything. And like for a guy who like can't really dribble, like how is he going to score? You wonder, like with that frame, like he just gets so much done at 18 years old that like there's a lot of avenues to that guy end up being good when he's 21, 22 eventually.
All right. Well, I won't ask you to compare him to Tre Johnson as the last year's raw French standing reach darling. I mean, watching 5 minutes of tape on him, I haven't really. He's on my list, but I would probably rate him higher than Salon just based on that 5 minutes that I watched. All right. Well, this has been fun. I really appreciate you making the time as always, and I'm looking forward to trying to hash out our 2024 draft boards 1 year later when I run into you in Vegas. That's what it's
Let's
gonna
do
be.
it.
Maybe not as good for me after unless you want to stick around and do that right now, because I think you're looking better than me so far. So you can
I've got all night, man. Let's talk about Ricochet.
That was good. I knew I could. I could wheedle 10 more minutes out of you with that. So yeah,
My favorite
you're
guy.
yeah. So I was lower on Ricochet. I can't remember exactly what you thought about Castle. Those are the two guys who kind of seemed like they had better rookie years than anticipated. All the guys that I liked were pretty bad.
I was a Castro skeptic. The
Okay,
shooting
all
for
right,
me
all right.
was so bad that I was, I probably underestimated like all the other ways that he impacts
Yeah,
winning, and that like, that he could play, he could do a lot more than probably what he showed. He was on such a great team and he played a very limited role, and like he got, a lot better as the year moved on. He had some big NCAA tournament games. I think I locked myself into, thinking one way that, yeah, and to his credit, he had a great rookie year, and like the shooting, obviously, still a big
yeah.
question. And then like, yeah, I mean, like when Victor went down is when Castro exploded. So let's see if he can actually do it, in games that matter. And yeah, no, he had a great rookie year, and he's looking like a very good pick for them.
Yeah, you you said you were too locked in. I'm like still locked into that even after a year later. So I will acknowledge this. the stuff that he was supposed to be good at, he was good at and maybe even better at than expected. But I think at this point he's like the most overrated player in the NBA, having won Rookie of the Year in a absolutely terrible class and put up a bunch of usage because there was no one else at the end. So like, yeah, he's really athletic, getting in the basket, can dribble and pass better than expected. The defense translated, but just for that position, I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, like that. Just like, yeah, okay, like all he does all this stuff that's interesting, but you still have to fit into a team concept. And are you such a believer in his on-ball stuff that it's going to be, you're going to give him the ball and then you don't have to worry about the shooting? Like, I don't think so. Like, he's going to have, Harper is a better on-ball prospect than him. They've got Victor, they've got Fox. All those guys are better on ball. So then he's taking stuff off the table with his inability to shoot for those guys if you're going to play him with them. So that's where I really, it's not about what he is and his own individual skill. It's more how that fits into the team concept.
Yeah.
But like he impressed me, but I also think he's just unbelievably overrated right now.
Are you as high on Edie as me? I'm
Well,
a huge
sadly,
Edie guy.
this
I was. And
yeah, I mean, no, I liked him. I liked him a lot, actually. This ankle thing is concerning. I actually thought he was underutilized offensively, and that they should post him up way more because it actually worked pretty well. Now he needs to be stop being such a wuss about like posting up right at the charge circle and like going to some hook shot over a guy who's 8 inches shorter than him. Like I'd like to see him just put dudes in the goal, Boban style. But no, I think he was better than anticipated on defense. I loved when Isalo put him on Jimmy Butler in the play-in game. I loved that strategy. He had I asked him about that afterwards. He had some interesting things to say about it. So no, yeah, I liked Edie a lot. I hadn't evaluated him as closely. The guy you and I disagreed on the most was Ricochet, who I think you part of like Ricochet actually was not that far above what I thought he would be.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everyone else above him sucked that I had. So that's why Ricochet is better now. I think it was more being well, and I don't know if I'm even that wrong on the other guys. Like they just had weird years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too early with Reed Shepherd. I think if you put Reed Shepherd on like Washington or something like that, like I think people would be very excited about him right now.
Well, and to me, like you're more familiar with his background than me, but my understanding is, he was never like that guy growing up, and even on the Kentucky team, he wasn't. And so putting him on a Houston team where he's coming in and playing 8 minutes a game as the backup point guard and trying not to fuck up, well, that's going to be, play into all his tendencies of not being aggressive enough and not, getting a little bit of imposter syndrome to begin with. And like, that was really setting him up to fail in particular, I think more than a lot of guys, because he's just going to go out there and like, just not really show any of the things that where I feel like he could be evolving into being a big scorer.
Yeah. My hot take is that Houston should just opt out of Van Vliet, say goodbye. Don't give him $100 million over 3 years and just put the ball in Reed Shepherd's hands, draft Jakucionis and just let it rock. That's what I would do.
Well, if you've got, I mean, they or they should opt in Van Vliet and trade him. They could get something for him too,
right?
For sure, I'm sure there would be a team that would like him. I mean,
who wouldn't want a
31-year-old
5'11" guy coming off, the worst season of his, the last 5 years?
Well, I'm glad. It's getting to be a little late there on the East Coast. The takes are flowing now.
Next time I got to do this with a beer. That would be way more enjoyable.
Well, yeah, but back to Ricochet though. Take your victory lap on him. I thought he
should
have been for that. Year, actually.
Yeah. Too early for that. We'll see. I mean, it takes like 3 years.
You can do like you can like get into the starting blocks for the victory lap maybe. But what did you see from him in his rookie year that kind of played into why you had him number one?
I mean, just the way that he guards. I think that's what always intrigued me, is that like the way if you can impact the game at that level at 18 years old, playing for a Euro Cup finalist team, a team that's competing for a championship in France. They were the best. This is what I said on the podcast a year ago. They were the best defensive team in France, and he's their best defender. And like for him to do that at 6'9", 18 years old, that tells me really good things about him. And then the shooting. I mean, obviously, hopefully he shoots it more consistently next year. I mean, he didn't shoot it as well as he probably needed to, and he had a lot of inconsistency in France too. So that's part of that. But like, I just think the being at that level of defender, that feel for the game, the shooting, that's just an easy guy to fit into any roster in the NBA. And that was why I had him at number one for the entire year.
Yeah, and I liked the way that he finished at the rim too. Like I was worried that his hands were too small. He would like miss all these dunks, and that that wasn't the case. I thought he was like pretty good attacking the basket in transition. So I think he's going to be really good. I like him a lot. He's going to be a high level starter, pretty obviously to me. All right then. This is I will let you go for real this time. Really appreciate you coming on, and I'll see you in about a month or so in
Good
Vegas.
stuff. Yeah, thanks for having me.